The Talksport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the Talksport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search Talksport Fan Network.
Welcome everybody to this week's cherry picking, and thank you for joining us. Firstly, apologies that we did not have a preview for the Brighton game. It's been a very, very crazy week, but we are back here now. And of course, it wouldn't be cherry picking without my main man, Mr. Matthew Harrison. How are you doing, Matthew?
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, all good. Yeah, looking forward to this week's cup game. So, yeah, a couple of disappointing results, but hopefully we can pick it back up and kick on tomorrow.
Definitely. And of course, we could potentially be in the last 8 of the FA Cup should we beat Wolves. So here's hoping. But I tell you what, let's start off. Of course, I did a bit of a very raw reaction walking through the golf course after the Wolves game. Let's cover off, though, the Brighton defeat, of course, midweek on Tuesday. And yes, that man, Justin Kluivert, scored a screamer but was unable to stop Brighton's spoils. So, yeah, firstly, Matt, this match, I think going into it, always a tricky place to go. They knew that, 3 points would get them level on points with us. They are themselves in with a chance of European football. They themselves are now within a chance of getting that Champions League spot that we would absolutely love ourselves. And, we've been in a good position to get. But what did you make, firstly, of the lineup?
I suppose really in terms of the changes that you had to make at the back, he couldn't really have done anything else, really. To be fair, Hill coming in, I thought, he had a fairly decent performance. We'll discuss him a little bit further, a little bit more further on. But, I mean, for me, the biggest disappointment from the game, rather than anything really to do with the lineup, was that we've gained the injury of Christie.
Yes.
And yeah, that's really disappointing. I mean, I don't think we really it wasn't our best performance. I think it took us the second half to really make any real impact. I thought the first half there were sort of decisions that were made in the final third probably a little bit too late. Sort of let Brighton have the opportunity to kind of win the ball a bit easier. But yeah, the second half's performance was a lot more promising. And in all honesty, as soon as seeing that flyer from Kluivert go in, kind of thought we were going to get a point out of this one, which I think would have been a fair result. To be fair, but when you look across the whole 90 minutes, I would say if we're being sensible, I'd say Brighton probably deserved the win, but it is disappointing. When you go on such a great run, as long as we've been on, unfortunately, it's always going to come to a halt. Just, obviously, I know you've had your video about the Wolves game, but the Wolves game for me, even if we still had 11 men, I don't think the performance would have been one of our best of the season. I think it was quite a flat performance in some respects, and the sending off didn't help that. Yeah, I mean, in comparison to the two games, I would say Bournemouth played better in the Brighton game. It's just a shame that Hill's performance, like I say, we'll touch on a bit more about him, a bit later on. But he did kind of give Welbeck an inch or two. I wouldn't say it was a yard, but just a little bit, lacking concentration now. I think kind of let Welbeck get the opportunity to finish the winner. And to be honest, when we saw Welbeck coming on, we all said that he's destined to score. But yeah, disappointing. But when you look at it from another side, it's nice not to be looking over your shoulder at the league table and looking at the relegation side of things. We're still in the hat for a European place. There's still plenty of more points to win. Got the cup game coming up, which obviously we'll discuss a bit more in detail shortly. But for me, if we can get a win in the cup game, and that sort of can spur us on to the Tottenham game and seeing what we can do there. There's some tricky fixtures coming up between now and the rest of the season, but there's still plenty of points to win to gain a European place. So it's not, it's a case of, it is a bit of a setback, but, we're not out of it. That's the main thing.
There's no reason why we can't go on another run like we have done as well, which could lead us very close to the end of the season, if not to the end of the season. I think if we had a really, really good run now, where, if we only lost another couple of games, we would be in with a massive shout. Of course, it depends on how many of those we win, how many we draw, but we have got a fantastic shout still. I completely agree with you on the Wolves game. I don't think we were at our peak, at our best. We was probably, I know to sound ridiculous, we was probably a little bit more lackluster. A little bit more lackluster in that match as we have been. We've been very, very clinical in all of our games, which maybe we didn't show against Wolves. But still, it's because we're coming from quite a big height. We were going into that Wolves game. We were expecting to get a win against Wolves because of the momentum we'd been on. But there was always that nagging doubt that Wolves were going to be a very, very different team to the one that we saw under Gary O'Neill. But less about Wolves, more about this one. Do you think it was a penalty?
Do you know what? It is one of those, isn't it, that you do see them given. And I mean, my argument with it is the ball was pretty much out of play when contact was made with Kepa.
Yeah.
But you've seen them given. You've seen them given and you've seen them not given. Just the inconsistency in the game, isn't it? Would I have awarded it? I don't, it's a difficult one, because if that was going against us, if it was the other way round, you'd be wanting the penalty.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think if I'm looking at it from a perspective as if I was refereeing it, or in the if I was in the VAR room, I don't think I would have given it. I don't think, if I was watching it from different angles. It's a bit difficult from the referee's position. I can't remember where the referee's position was, to be fair. But if you're looking at it from VAR, but then again, there'd be hundreds of people out there saying it's a penalty. I mean, the problem is if you as a goalkeeper and you go down to obviously make contact with the ball.
Yeah.
as goalkeepers do, like Kepa did there, as goalkeepers do in every game, you always run that risk of potentially making contact with the player, and not only that, Dean Howson as well did kind of put have his arms sort of in the back of the player, whether it was a push or not, whether he's pushed him into Kepa or what is obviously something that people can debate and have their own opinions on. But
yeah,
I just think as a goalkeeper, when you're coming out for the ball and you go to ground with a player coming on at you like that, you run the risk of the player making contact and going down in the box.
yeah, completely agree. And
again, it's a ref. This is where all the inconsistency is, isn't it, with VAR and the referee? So you'd have a referee on the pitch. He pointed to the spot straight away, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then you might have stuck another different referee there who may have not given it. And you may have different people, different referees in the VAR room that may have overruled the ref or may have agreed with the ref. So it is quite. A lot of it is down to individual. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm looking for a word. Individual.
How an individual really looks at the.
Yeah, there's a word I was
really,
looking
yeah.
for. Yeah, basically that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, okay, the penalty, early doors, not great to concede. But that second half, we were a lot better. Clive obviously scores an outstanding goal. That's probably his goal of the season, I think, out of his batch of goals that he has scored.
100%.
And then that's when really we should have been a bit more consistent with our performance all the way through. We had good spells in the second half, but I don't think we were very consistent with it. And disappointing not to come away with a point there. I must admit, I'm very disappointed. I mean, when you look at the performance against Wolves, I think really, in fairness, we probably. I don't think really, and with the sending off, I don't think really, even though the sending off was bitterly disappointing, but I just think, out of the two performances, the Brighton second half performance was a lot better, and it's just that we didn't get any points from it. But then again, when you look at results this week, Liverpool beating Newcastle was quite handy for us, and so as long as some of the teams immediately above us drop some points, hopefully we can catch up when the league starts again. But like I say, we're not out of it. There's no doom and gloom. It's disappointing.
No.
Let's just, like I always say, pick yourself up, dust yourself down, and go again. And that starts tomorrow with the cup game.
Yeah, definitely. I think, with the goalkeeper, he was committed, and to be honest, he's gone down. The ball was pretty much out of play when, the referee made the decision, VAR's looked at it. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's one of them. Matt, one question, though. Should we have had our own penalty? Because we've seen these given. Now, I think that this would have been very, 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 harsh on Brighton. But we've seen them given against us. And of course, James Hill instantly, when Van Heck handled the ball and turned his body, he's trying to get his hand out the way, but it's hit his hand. And it is ball to hand. But again, this is the consistency. If you're giving penalties against teams when that happens, surely you've got to give each one, that happens with. And personally, based on the decisions we've had, I think we should have had a penalty there.
Yeah, and I think it would have been possibly harsh, to be fair.
Yeah.
The only argument for it, though, really, is that the players. I think, if I remember rightly, the ball made contact with the player twice, wasn't it? Now, the first time it made contact with the player, I think his arm was in a natural position. In fairness,
yeah.
The second time, that's where you'd question it, I think.
Yeah, completely.
And you're right; they've been given against us. And yeah, again, like you say, it's the down to the referee that you have and the consistency of it, isn't it? And like I said, they've gone against us, and you've seen them given before. So again, unfortunate, or possibly unfortunate there. But I think I think it might have been a harsh decision.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with you on Welbeck. As soon as he come on, I think that's what Brighton needed to just kind of push themselves over the line and get that
Yeah,
second goal.
yeah, an experienced player knows what
Yeah,
he's doing. He's he's always someone that can get you a goal. When you need it. He's that
yeah,
type of player. And you can see exactly why he's come off the bench and look what he's done. Okay, like I say, probably a little bit of lack of concentration from a defensive perspective, but fair play to Welbeck. He managed to squeeze that ball in, and yeah, I mean, he's just one of those players that you see come off the bench and you think, God, if someone's going to get a goal tonight, it's going to be him now. And obviously,
yeah.
within a couple of minutes, he's put the ball in the net and scored the winner. But yeah, fair play to Brighton. They've done the double over us. Brighton, have always been a decent side over the last sort of few seasons, and they're always good at recruitment. From players to
Mhm.
management. And I believe their director of football's even being headhunted now, isn't it? I think it's David Weir. I think Everton are headhunting him. I think to go
Yeah.
back to Everton. So no matter what sort of position they seem to fill, they always seem to fill it. Sorry, fill it with the right candidate. So yeah, good. It's a and it's what is good. I mean, take the disappointment, the defeat aside, but to
Mhm.
see two clubs like Bournemouth and Brighton up there in the Premier League is fantastic. Because I mean, you look over the years, Brighton's had their troubles just like what we've had. At one point they had no stadium. When they sold the Goldstone, they were sharing with Gillingham, Priestfield, and then the Withdean days. So they've come on to this Premier League, being up there. They've been in Europe already, haven't they? So, it's a great model of a club to look up to. And it's great to see two clubs that, years ago, like when I was a kid, I remember watching, on the news that, Brighton are fighting for survival in the third division and,
Mm.
someone scoring a last minute winner and, the last game of the season to keep them in the third division and things like that. And now they're now they're up high in the Premier League and with a great model of a club. So that's something that is pleasing. I think it's great for football to see two clubs like Bournemouth and Brighton, in the top half of the Premier League and competing for European places. I think it's great for football. Really, I think it really is.
Well, long may it continue. Long may it continue. But there we are. That's our thoughts on that Brighton defeat. But there has been some more news as well. And it does relate to Daniel Jebbison, somebody who was, well, obviously treated badly by Watford, but hasn't done badly in the Cherries shirt once he's been back. So Jesse Marsch, everybody will remember my conversation about Jesse Marsch. How long wrong was I?
Mm.
Canada secures former England youth international Daniel Jebbison, so he'll be playing for Canada. So Jesse Marsch and Canada have reportedly secured the international recruitment of highly rated dual national Daniel Jebbison from English Premier League side Bournemouth. A former youth international with England, the 21-year-old has committed his international future to Les Rouges. Jebbison was born in Oakville, Ontario, but is eligible to represent England and Jamaica through his parents. He is in the process of utilising his one-time change with FIFA to join Marsch's ranks. The Athletic was the first to report on Jebbison's commitment. Jebbison spent the first half of the season on loan at Championship side Watford, but has since returned to the Cherries to become a regular off the bench with the club. He scored 2 goals in the FA Cup, but has not found the back of the net in the Premier League in his 8 appearances under manager Andoni IRAOLA in domestic action. On Saturday, Marsch attended Bournemouth's 1-0 loss to Wolverhampton Wanderers, presumably to watch Jebbison in person. Since Marsch took over last May, Jebbison will be the third highly rated dual national to be recruited by Les Rouges, following the likes of Croatian-Canadian midfielder Nico Serga and recent commitment Nigerian-Canadian forward Prince David. Jebbison last represented the Three Lions in May 2023 at the Under-20 World Cup. Prior to that, he was part of the England team that won the 2022 Under-19s Championship, where he scored 1 goal during the group stage of the competition. In order to secure Jebbison's commitment, Marsch reportedly met with him multiple times, where he stressed the urgency of building the programme ahead of the 2026 World Cup. Marsch and his staff also shared a video with Jebbison. Of course, that World Cup is going to be held joint with Canada as well. And highlighting the strengths of Les Rouges roster and where he'll fit in. They showed clips of Jebbison in games and shared how he would transition into very similar roles with Canada. The Federation and Marsch also had 3 of their top stars record specific video messages to send to Jebbison, asking for him to commit to the programme, with Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David and Alistair Johnston all reaching out. This is interesting, actually. Now, I'm going to say something that, Leeds fans might not agree with me on. But I don't think Jesse Marsch is that bad a manager. Yeah, don't get me wrong. My video way back when, when I said, he might be the man that, we need to start getting points on the board to replace Andoni IRAOLA was probably one of my least proud moments. Pretty stupid, wasn't it? But he's not a bad manager. And I think, he is doing the right things for Canada. I think he will be a good manager. And the fact that he's going to bring in a player like Daniel Jebbison, who I know it sounds harsh, but he's going to struggle to play for England. It's going to, how many players are going to be fighting to get into that England squad, and how strong is that England squad at the moment? Incredibly. I think this is a great move for him, and I think it makes sense. The only other thing I would say, though, is would it not be worthwhile of looking at Jamaica and working under old Steve McLaren, the Wally with the brolly? He's obviously gone with Canada, maybe because it's more sentimental for him. And of course, they have got this place at the World Cup in, next year. Next year, it's crazy to think time's flying by, but next year, he will potentially be at the World Cup.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the pools, isn't it? That, there's a good chance that he can play at a World Cup by, obviously, he was born there, wasn't he? I think he lived in Canada up until the age of 14, so I'm sure there's like the sentimental side of it as well. And maybe he feels that that's probably the best chance of maybe having a decent international career. Like Jonathan David, for example, that was mentioned there. I mean, he's a fantastic player, and I think Bournemouth were actually looking at him quite a few seasons ago. So there is some decent players, but collectively they're not really a force in world football, are they?
No.
But like you say, with the pool of players that we have got in England, in his position, it might be he might see it tricky to maybe hold down an international place, quite possibly. But yeah, I'd imagine playing at the World Cup would have been a massive pull for him. And obviously Canada are a joint host nation, aren't they, with USA and Mexico, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, be interesting to see what happens. It'd be interesting to see when they make their next squad announcement that obviously he's in it. You don't obviously want to switch allegiance and then not get selected. He must have some confidence in that side of it as well. But Yeah, I mean, it'd be something that, if he's selected, I will keep an eye and try and watch, the Canada game that he might be involved in, whether it's from the bench or starting or what. But yeah, it'd be something interesting to keep an eye on during the internationals. Like I do with the other guys that are selected each time. It's always good to try and catch the highlights or catch a game with them involved if you can.
Mm.
And I'll do the same with Jebbo, and hopefully it works out for him. He's made the decision. He switched allegiance, and fair play to him. Hope it works out.
Yeah, most definitely. And I'm not saying that Jamaica won't get to the World Cup. There's a very possible chance that they would do, but it does make sense. And Canada are one of those emerging nations that, at this moment in time in world football, they're not a powerhouse, of course. Ice hockey is their national sport, but we've seen it throughout the years. There's a couple actually in both North and South America that are looking quite good at the moment. Maybe a resurgence of the Mexico team. Of course, they've always been there, but they've never really pushed on. There was that a little while back as well where they were quite highly favoured to go quite far into a World Cup. I think it was 2006 or 2010, and they didn't. So it's not always a given, but it's got to be a great experience. Like the team, I believe Canada actually knocked out of the competition last year, which Venezuela, for example, another team, of course, that's emerging. So Canada are definitely one of those, and I think they'll do well. And like I say, as much as we joke about Jesse Marsch, I don't think he's a terrible manager.
Okay.
There's the look. Don't agree on that one, Matt, I guess.
Moving swiftly on.
Yeah, moving swiftly on. Let's talk about the FA Cup.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's talk about this week's FA Cup tie.
Yes.
I think it's going to be a different game to last week. Obviously, the most important, if you look at it from Wolves' perspective, probably the most important out of the two fixtures was last week.
Yes.
Obviously, staying in the Premier League is your bread and butter, and that'd be the same for any club. But they're not. It's not that they're not going to give us a game tomorrow. I just think it's going to be a different kind of feel.
Agree.
From our perspective, this is something that I really do hope we go for, and I hope we come out and place some of our best football, because I think even though loving it where we are in the league, in contention for these places, I just think that this is probably the most open cup that Bournemouth have probably still been involved in, if that makes sense.
100%.
So many big clubs out. Your Liverpool's out, which obviously at the moment best, one of the best sides in Europe, best side in the country. So, so they're out of the competition. Chelsea, to name a few. So, if we can get past Wolves, then obviously we get into the quarters. I think there's definitely going to be at least one championship side in the quarters.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this is, for me, this is one I really, really want to win. Really want to win it.
Well, we've got a great chance of getting some silverware, if we can get past Wolves. Of course, there are still some decent sides in there. Manchester United, the current holders, are still in there. They've been fairly lucky to get through to where they are, but they're there. Manchester City are there, albeit, against Leighton Orient. Leighton Orient gave them a real game. So we've got a real chance. My concern is if we do get past Wolves, and we do come up against the Man City, it might be a case that their priorities possibly change a little bit, and that they start sniffing blood and thinking, right, we can win this ourselves. Are Man City going to prioritise this competition over the Premier League? Well, they're not going to win the Premier League, so yeah, it's something we can really win.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The thing with Man City, because obviously they're finishing the top 4, I think, but they're going to have no silverware unless they win the FA Cup.
Exactly.
So their priorities have changed. It's not a case of have they have, because he's not going to want to finish the season potless, is he? Now, when you look at it, if they finish 3rd or 4th and won the FA Cup, it's still a below par season from their standards, from what they've done over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. It's a below. Obviously, they won the treble, didn't they? So no, the quadruple, wasn't it? Was it quadruple?
No, they didn't. They were in for it, weren't they? But I think they won a double, didn't they?
They've definitely done a treble.
They did do a treble. Yes, they did do a treble. Yes, they did. Not last season, the season before.
They won them all.
No. Which one didn't they win? I think it was the Carabao Cup.
The Carabao Cup, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at it, over the last sort of, like I say, 4 or 5 years, it's definitely a bit of a drop in standards, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but let's fingers crossed that Plymouth can do them.
Yeah, exactly.
Go on, Plymouth. Everyone's going to be a Plymouth fan, I think, unless you're a City fan.
Killers.
Over the weekend, but fingers crossed for Plymouth, and it's great to see that they're getting their chance to go up to the Etihad. But yeah, even Villa, Uri Emery said in his press conference yesterday, he was asked outright, can you win the FA Cup? Have you got one hand on the cup? And he's kind of like, well, no, I don't think we have, because even though those big clubs are out, the likes of Villa, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Brighton are still in it, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Those 4 clubs have got just as much as say as the likes of United, and probably more than United, in fairness, because they're not great, are they? But just as much of say in who wins this competition. So, it's going to be an exciting weekend. I love FA Cup weekends.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that bit of the magic has been sapped out of it over the years, with removing replays, which we've said before. But from our point of view, lineup tomorrow, is there going to be some subtle changes? Will Soler, I said it right?
Yeah, Julio Soler.
Maybe he'll get some game time tomorrow. Which would be nice to see. So he might, Luis Sinisterra could do with some minutes. So he might, give some game time. Will he maybe start Eva Nilsson? I don't know on that one. I think he's definitely going to need some game time tomorrow, though. Whether it's off the bench again, for match fitness. He may tweak the side a bit. He might bring in Winterburn again. Who's played, in the last couple of rounds, which is always great to see, one of your youth products coming through and making a bit of an impact. It'd be interesting to see what's lined up. I'd imagine he tweak it. Will he tweak it to the degree where he'd put Will Dennis in ahead of Kepa? I don't think so. I think Kepa will start. And I think when you're this far in the competition now, and I think it would make sense maybe not to tweak it that much to the degree where you maybe chuck in your second choice keeper, even though I'd like to see him get some game time. I don't think that'd be the case tomorrow, but
definitely. Well, let's talk quickly about Ilya Zabania, of course, sent off against Wolves. How much of a miss is he?
Well, fair play to James Hill the other night, but this guy, not seeing him in the side, you can really see, what quality he is. He's not a dirty defender, so I still, with that red card last week, really do feel he's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because not, and I don't think he's got a massive tally of yellow cards either, has he?
No.
So I think it's a really unlucky one. If his foot hadn't rolled over the ball, I don't think there would have been any of this going on. But the fact is, it is what it is. the FA have made their decision, and he's not going to be available. But yeah, he's a massive miss. Now, Senesi, another defender who I've rated, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
But Dean Howson come in, and it was almost like Senesi.
Yeah.
And probably no disrespect to Senesi, hasn't really been missed.
No.
Because he's just slotted in there. He's he's such a mature head. And he's formed such a good partnership. But yeah, when you take this guy out, it's like, you can clearly see the void there massively.
Well, let's talk about the man that he will be no doubt filling in, and it's James Hill. Of course, 5 clearances, 3 interceptions, 6 tackles, and 8 dual wins against Brighton. I don't think he did a bad job. He is probably still, and I know it sounds crazy saying this against the Barnier, it's probably still a little bit inexperienced compared to Zab, but
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
that's no disrespect to him whatsoever, because you have got Dean Howson in front of you, and you have got, of course, the Barnier in front of you. 2 players that are at their very peak at such a very young age. And hey, if it was, a couple of years back and neither of those 2 players were there, James Hill, no doubt, would get a lot more opportunities than he has done. It's obvious that IRAOLA does fancy him over Chris Metham, because otherwise Chris Metham would still be here and James Hill would be out on loan. So it's no disrespect to him. I think there's still a lot to learn. But hey, take this opportunity with both hands, show what you can do, and I'm confident that he will be a very, very good asset for this football club in the long run.
Yeah, no, you're probably spot on. Yeah, you're probably spot on. And I've just got to give a big shout out to him though, because that is a pair of classic boots he's wearing there. That's like old school Preds.
They're nice, aren't they?
I think that's the I think that's what Adidas have done, kind of relaunched old style boots. I'm sure they've got some different modifications, but they look beautiful, those boots. So just a big shout out for your boots anyway, James, because they're looking good. But yeah, no, as a player, I think he's got a lot of potential. The club wouldn't have paid £1 million for him when they did from a league side without him having potential. Mepham out of the picture, which means it gives him a bit more game time. Probably not more, as much game time as Hill would like, but at least it's top level football. And he's in and around the squad. A lot more on match days, and things like that. It was unfortunate he got injured when he did, because I thought he was playing superb at the time. And I think the Newcastle game where he was playing right back, putting in some beautiful balls.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back now.
There was a game anyway, and he was playing right back, and I think, did he set up the goal from right back? Anyway,
yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. 100%. I remember that one.
Yeah,
I remember
anyway,
that.
so he's putting some. I'll be honest, I prefer him at right back.
Yes,
I'll be honest, I prefer him at right back, but he's from his stats there, 8 dual wins and 6 tackles, 3 interceptions, 5 clearances. He's and like I say, I felt he had a good performance against Brighton. It was just that little bit of possibly lack of concentration for the goal, but yeah, let's it's always good to see a player like James getting some game time and watching him develop. So
agree.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be playing tomorrow, and I'm sure he'll put a shift in. So
yeah,
definitely.
But
obviously, tomorrow being tomorrow, there is another player that's kind of getting a bit of attention at Wolves. So obviously, we always mention
Cunha.
But this player here, is it Belgrade? Is that how you pronounce it? Bellegarde. He's getting quite a lot of attention. A lot of Wolves fans now are thinking that he's actually, he's actually finally settled and bedded in, and he's I think someone even said somewhere that he's now fit to wear the shirt. So this is another name to watch out for. What's your opinion on this guy?
Yeah, he's a very, very solid player. A very, very good player. And he will be a very, very good prospect for the future as well. So he's somebody that we have to watch out for. He's definitely going to get the nod, I think. Tomorrow we'll see him. We've just got to make sure that we stop him from creating and being dangerous.
Okay. Well, we won't focus too much on Wolves, but we've got to obviously give our score prediction.
Yes.
Cool. Well, I'll let you go first, as always.
Well, I did predict that we were going to win against Wolves in the Premier League game. Didn't quite happen. I'm going to predict the same result, 2-1 to AFC Bournemouth, and hopefully it's second time lucky.
Okay, I'm going 3-1.
3-1.
I'm going 3-1. I think we need to make a real statement tomorrow. Get our season back going again. We've had that little blip of 2 defeats after a run of 16. Was it undefeated?
Do we call that a blip now? Do we call that a blip, 2 defeats?
Is it like a little blip? Not a blip. I wouldn't say
Shows
it's a blip.
how well we've done, though.
Yes, exactly. And I think it'd be good to get the go to Spurs with a win behind us. So I'm going to go 3-1. I think Iriola's going to want his revenge.
Yeah, definitely. Well, fingers crossed. And yeah, we will be there. But I tell you what, we are inducting one player into the Hall of Fame as well, based on your votes. And who is that player, Matt?
Well, thanks to everybody for voting on the Facebook page, telling us your stories about him, and why you voted for him. But so the man being inducted into the UTCID Hall of Fame this week is Jerry Painton.
Yeah. So there he is, a key figure of the 1986-87 Third Division Championship winning side, who made over 200 appearances in goals for the Cherries. He represented the Republic of Ireland and was part of the Euro 88 and also the 1990 World Cup. And he's the former Arsenal goalkeeping coach as well. So congratulations, Jerry. We don't give any prizes, unfortunately, for our Hall of Famers, but you are in the Hall of Fame. So there we are, forever crystallised on Up the Cherries in all departments. There we go.
Yep, so that is this week's winner. But obviously this week's question to everybody on Facebook was, who is the best defender that you've seen in a Cherry shirt?
Yeah.
So these players that are on here today that have been spoken about by various different people. Sorry, I haven't had time to include everybody's name, but it's been a really busy week this week, unfortunately. Obviously, with the game on Tuesday night, and just with life in general, sometimes you have the odd busy week. So I haven't had time to include everybody's name, but
bonkers this week.
Yeah, it's been manic. But no, thank you to everybody that have taken part in the voting, and obviously telling us your stories about who you feel that the best defender is that you've seen in a Cherry shirt. And these are the most common names that have cropped up. So let's get this started. Nathan Ake. So Nathan Ake was mentioned by numerous people on Facebook as one of the best defenders they've seen in a Cherry shirt. And to be fair, I can't disagree with those ones that have said that. Nathan was one of my favourite players while he was here. Very versatile defender. Left-footed, can play centre-back, left-back, and even played defensive midfield as well. So, he's a very versatile player, quality player. So I wasn't surprised to see his name on there. Nathan Ake.
Yep.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Bit of a cough coming on, I think. Sean Till. was a common name also mentioned by several people.
Been on the channel as well.
He's been on the channel. You've been privileged to have him on the channel. Great interview as well, from what I can remember of it.
Yes.
A very honest and frank one. But yeah, Sean Teal, and one from. I do remember my dad saying, if you ask him about Sean Teal, he'd tell you a few stories. He rated Sean Teal very highly in his short time at Bournemouth.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's another one. Nice name blast from the past there. Sean Teal.
Yep.
Now, a modern name mentioned by, I think this one might have been mentioned by Danny Stewart, maybe, if I remember rightly. But yeah, Dean Howson. Now, Dean Howson not even played 30 games for Bournemouth, and it's already been talked about as being one of the best defenders they've seen in a Bournemouth shirt.
Wow.
But really, on the back of his performances, you can't really disagree. But yeah, Dean Howson.
There we are.
Mr. Dean Howson. Well, the next one, a legend again, someone that's been on the channel.
Yes.
Steve Cook.
Legend.
Yeah,
good goalkeeping save against. He should be in the goalkeepers category for that hook at Norwich. You remember that, where he just hooked it over the bar?
Yeah, and I think he did one at Cardiff as well, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So Steve Cook, and another legend of the game, Neil Young.
Mm-hmm.
Neil, obviously, his second in the all-time appearance makers for Bournemouth, obviously behind Mr. Fletcher. But yes, anyone that watched Bournemouth in the 90s and to the early 2000s, obviously know this name. Stands out.
Definitely.
And one last one that was mentioned was Tony Nelson. Unfortunately, way before my time and your time.
Yes.
But for the older fans, Tony Nelson would be a name that people will remember. And like I say, he had a few comments on the post. So all of those players will be up for voting for this week. The post will go live on Facebook sometime during the weekend for everybody to vote for one of those to be inducted into the Hall of Fame for next week.
There we are. Get voting. But, of course, we've got this game against Wolves next week. We will, of course, after that, be back to Premier League action against Spurs. So we will have cherry picking next week as well. So do hit the like, subscribe, the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow. And like I say, Spotify, Amazon listeners, come on over to YouTube as well, because you get to see our lovely faces. So yeah, thank you again to our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. You can visit them at dentalonthebanks.co.uk for all your teeth repairs that you might need doing, and also Touchpoint Telecoms. You can find them at touchpointtelecoms.co.uk if you need a phone system for your business. It doesn't matter where you are, they cover everywhere from Poole to Edinburgh. I'm just picking names out of the hat there. I had to think of a name up north, but yeah, there we go. So from me and Matt, thank you for joining us on this cherry picking, and we'll see you in the next one.
Talksport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the Talksport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search Talksport Fan Network.